what are the things that you would say, tell everybody, make sure that this is top on your leaders list?
So it starts with, creating a individual will, as well as beginning to look reflectively at what you've built at your company and starting to create a very clear document trail for everything. Every process should have its own set of documentation. Every vendor contract should be organized in a way that someone can look back and historically see the progression of vendor management. You should identify legacy employees for tribal knowledge and start creating pathways for that to be passed on, and training
Mm.
tools and devices. So as those individuals either fear this transition and make a change themselves, or go along with the transition, that none of that is lost. Because while as leaders we share many meetings where we talk about these great ideas, and our employees hopefully know our values and deploy them in action on a day-to-day basis, there are a lot of nuts and bolts that go on behind the scenes that, as someone that firsthand had to do a lot of unpacking to learn this stuff, had to make a lot of really uncomfortable and awkward calls to say, my company has been paying you for a long time, and I don't know what you do for us.
Wow.
In very vulnerable situations that expose a company to a lot of risk, and that's excluding some large areas like finance that I haven't touched, workers' compensation and safety for industrial facilities, lease agreements, and again, energy contracts, individual client-based agreements. How many of these were set up by a leader or manager that is no longer there, that was done on a verbal basis, where both you and the client company are going, this is what we've always done, but we don't have any precedents for this. The list goes on forever, and the costs only rise among these if they don't become compliance or legal issues in and of themselves.
Yeah, it's funny because oftentimes when a lot of these things get done, it's if an organization is built on this mindset and they do a great job of it and they just keep their house in order, that's fantastic. Most don't. When it typically happens is when someone starts thinking about going to buy another firm or selling their firm. So we talk about pre-due diligence a lot in this show. And what you just talked about is a relatively simple thing that oftentimes does not get done, but it's the assembling of the artifacts of proof. And so if everybody that's listening pay attention to the fact that not only does this help for succession, for transition, it also prepares you and puts you in a power position if you ever decide to buy another firm, because you can easily show them we have a house in order. And that literally changes the value of a company. Or if you are thinking about selling, then it's incredibly obvious because it'll be a requirement. But I just want to point out that kind of pre-due diligence, not only does it change the value of your company, but it avoids all of the nightmare that you went through. So since that's your top thing that you would share with people, I'll just put that in a different framework, because a lot of people think, well, I'm never going to die. I'm never going to have a problem. I'm never going to have something like that happen. And we all pray for that. But the reality is it typically does happen. Something happens like that. And you have to, so if you just frame it as pre-due diligence, it makes you feel a little bit better.
Absolutely. Small steps. I think the typical business owner hears a succession plan and thinks it is this complex series of working documents that a lawyer has to draft, that you're going to spend a lot of money. No, it is very small steps. Again, creating organizational systems. Start with the files on your computer. If you're someone that has thousands of loose documents saved in your My Documents folder, and you take the time to organize them, start
You may
creating.
be a problem if.
Correct. you know think about who you trust to start involving in that plan. Send out employee engagement surveys to get employees' take on these things, because the reality is, Bryon, as soon as you sit down with someone from a business valuation perspective, or a potential investor, these are the first things they're going to ask for. They're going to ask for financials. They're going to ask for a list of, payables and who your vendor lists are and things like that. If that seems like oh, I can't provide that right now, that is the simplest place to start. And you'll be amazed at how it spider webs and you work your way into a true succession plan.